back. I'm very excited about this session, Hack the Gender Gap. I know we talked a lot about gender issues already, but I believe there's still a lot that has to be achieved. So as long as there's no gender equality globally, we have to talk about it. And there cannot be a better moderator for this session than Dorothy Gordon, a board member of WSA, a jury member since the very beginning and always fighting for gender equality, that women have a say, that female founders are put to the front. So over to you, Dorothy, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Nora. I can see that the image quality is not the best, but I hope that is just for me. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be asked to moderate this panel of exclusively women, but exceptional women leaders. And I'm sure that we're going to have a lot to discuss. Let me give a heads up to the men that we are definitely going to be calling on you in the question and answer session. We want to stimulate a lively debate. And I'm very pleased that as somebody who focuses on digital transformation, that we have this opportunity to actually reinforce the fact that without digital equality, there can be no true equality for women. So let me now invite Diana, who works for UN Women. And I've seen that Diana Rusu has spoken a lot about the importance of women's economic empowerment and how it is essential for growth for everyone. So we will not achieve growth, we will not recover from the pandemic without the full involvement of women. So let's hear from you, Diana. And then after Diana, we'll have a wonderful impact story from Fatima Askira. So Diana, you have the screen.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Hello, everyone. Dear Congress participants and collaborators, distinguished panelists. All good? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
We can hear you very well, but we can't see you.
I'm here. Can you see me?
We can see you now. Wonderful.
Thank you. I guess the signal from New York is very poor, you know. Connectivity is the key here, and this is about what we will speak today. Dear Congress participants and collaborators, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here with you at the Hack the Gender Gap session. The discussion comes at a difficult time for the world and for gender equality, but at the perfect time to moment in fight for transformative change and action. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of connectivity, and why now more than ever, connecting every person will help accelerate the global socio-economic recovery. Despite increase in our work in the recent years, we still have a lot of things to do in order to make sure that women are not as they are now. We find currently women are still underrepresented, underpaid, and often discriminated against the tech industry. So let's have some statistics here. As of today, near half of the world is still offline. 3.6 billion people, many of whom are women from developing countries. In fact, at the current rate of internet growth and adoption, universal affordable internet will not be achieved until 2043. Imagine, in 20 years, can we wait for this? Achieving the universal access goal requires closing this global digital gap, gender gap. In low and middle income countries, 433 million women are unconnected today. The global internet user gap is 17%, and the digital gender gap exists in all the regions in the world. Boys are 1.5 times more likely to own a phone. And when they do, it's more likely to have a smartphone than in the case when women or girls own a phone. And some interesting stats also in terms of leadership. In the United States, half of the tech startups do not have any women in their leadership teams. And women in tech holds only 24% of available senior vice president or other senior leadership position. Also, in analyzing some data from Europe, we found that only one female chief technology officer responded out of a sample of 175 for the State of European Tech report. And the last statistic that probably will not be shock for anyone is that a 2020 Tech Point report in Africa estimated that at least one female co-founder successfully raised 1 million or more in the last decade. So 10% of West Africa focused startup. As we see, the impact of crisis are never gender neutral, and COVID-19 is no exception. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to pose devastating risks for women and girls. So lockdown restrictions during pandemic have left millions of girls, women and people of all genders vulnerable of growing shadow pandemic, and especially and including cyber violence. For these people, technology can be a life-saving line of defense. And I'm speaking about simple technology based on geolocation function, free calls to domestic abuse hotlines, discrete apps where they can receive free emergency dial to provide support and information. UN Women latest report showed that the pandemic pushed 96 million people into extreme poverty, 47 million of whom are women and girls. 47 million of women and girls are pushed into extreme poverty. In this situation, we need to look at the changing landscape of job, the tools we use, the social interaction. Being online is a crucial part of social economic transformation. We must consider how to build back better and equal by leveraging technology and digital access to unleash the leadership power and potential of women and girls. But let's think for a little bit. Why are many women unable to land various roles, including leadership roles in the technology sector? Is it about gender stereotypes? Sure. It's about biases? Sure. Glass ceiling? Yes. Workforce attrition? Yes. Yes, we should acknowledge that the problem starts with women much larger barrier at being hired for technical entry-level position. So we need to solve the problem of broken rank in the career ladder. Already puts women in disadvantage, which leads tech companies into a cycle of hiring employees with the same gender and race, mainly white males. Of course, companies need to take much more responsibility to set the targets, quotas for recruiting, retaining, and promoting women at work. And of course, it is absolutely critical to continue to invest in learning for women tech employees amid COVID. It is imperative to prevent disruption and acquisition of skills and knowledge. Lifelong learning is essential. This is the vision of 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, this is the vision of Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. And this is the vision of Generation Equality Forum. We all are inviting to join. We as physical entities, along with government, civil societies, and companies, private sector, we all need to partner in order to solve the women representation in tech. So I invite you to join the Act for Equal, which is a new campaign that UN Women and partners just launched to raise the awareness of Generation Equality Forum, which will happen next week in Mexico and in June in France. How you should do so? Using your voice, share the campaign placards and help draw attention to the issue. Participate in such discussion as this one. Ask your governments or major companies to act by arranging an internal policy or in the marketplace or in the community. Join the conversation. Influence the Generation Equality Forum for the public forum. Please join us and join the fight, advocate and act for women and girls. We need technology, and technology needs women as leaders. I thank you, and I wish everyone a good session. See you online.
Thank you so much, Diana. We are looking forward to joining your campaign, and thank you for inspiring us with that wonderful speech. I'm now pleased to call on my sister Fatima, based in Borno, and she's part of a number of great networks, including the African Women's Leaders Network. We're very honored to have you with us here, Fatima, and over to you. You have the screen.
Yes, thank you very much, Dorothy, and good afternoon to everyone from Nigeria. I started as a young girl. I started as a girl from a community that was very, very peaceful, but then ravaged by insurgency. We've seen horrors, we've seen terrible things, but that didn't discourage myself and many other young people like me from the northeast Nigeria, and precisely talking about Borno State, where the Boko Haram insurgency and crisis started, and it's still thriving. I started, and technology had actually played a huge role in the work that I do today. I founded an organization, Borno Women Development Initiative, and this is inspired by the marginalization, the neglect, and the how conflict affects women and girls, and how they are actually the worst hit. In my own sense, I call it the worst hit, because we've seen, of course, a lot of men being killed, a lot of men being recruited, but we've seen more women being used as tools for violence. We've seen women being utilized in many other forms. They are not dead, but they are left to champion many causes of living. They are left to cater for the children. They are left to serve in both camps. For example, at the terrorist den, where they have to serve as slaves, where they have to work as domestic workers to serve. And we've seen them being strapped with suicide bombs and being sent down to our communities to be executed, to be killed, and all of those pieces together. My work actually revolves around using the social media again to mobilize and ensure that we're getting the attention that we're supposed to get, by highlighting voices, by ensuring that women and girls issues are placed out there, but then also for mobilization of resources and bringing communities together to make sure that these communities are making impact, to make sure that we are supporting each other, to make sure that we are reaching out to the most vulnerable, and then bringing out feedback to who or what matters in the whole of the cycle. Again, for me, technology is very important, and we've seen a lot of barriers between technology and women and girls, starting with the internet connectivity. I am not living in deep location. For instance, I'm at the city capital, but even here, if you look at the connectivity, is not perfect, and we're still breaking up. So how about the reach out to young women and girls that are down there at community level, at grassroots level, that needs their voices to be heard, or that have innovations and ideas that are supposed to be nurtured through the use of technology, internet, accessories, and stuff like that. The gap is huge, and one way we could work through or towards achieving this is make sure that we are mobilizing young women, we're mobilizing girls, we are bringing them and connecting them to what is happening in the world. COVID has come with a unique experience. COVID has come with a different way of working, and we have adjusted to new normal. And this is to say technology is actually working, and work can still be done while people are not at the front. And this way, we can say it's an experience to all of us, to myself, that I know I can reach out to many, many women and girls down there and equip them with this technological support and make sure that we are getting the feedback and the back and forth from our communities at grassroots level, but then also to bridge the gap. One important lesson I've learned through the course of my work is I have mobilized a lot of community resource through the use of technology and internet. And I had no idea how many people are actually following up with issues and looking at these gaps until I started my journey. I have many campaigns that I've led, like one example of the Cover the Woman and Her Child campaign, where we mobilized warm clothes, food for vulnerable women and children. And we got a lot of support through those donation sites and angles. And this is one area whereby we have ideas and innovations that are coming there. But we've seen a lot and huge gaps in how education is not supportive of women. Currently in Nigeria, we have seen a lot of abductions. It started with the Chibok girls, which has been the main news around the world, and then it moved. Now a lot of bandits, a lot of terrorists are targeting at schools, not only the women and girls schools, but even the boys schools. So school for many young women now is close to inaccessible, I can say, in Nigeria, because everybody is scared. Nobody knows how or what will happen when he sends his daughter or his child to school, and this is becoming very alarming. And here I'm posing a challenge to world leaders. I'm posing this challenge to us, to all the technical people, to see how and what ways we can support these women and girls to even have access to education through technology, through the use of internet, but then even taking it to their doorstep to ensure that we are empowering them with the right equipment that they work for. This is just a snapshot of what is going on the ground, a real grassroots scenario, but then also in a way to pose the challenge to all the panelists to also elaborate and come up with ideas that we could see rural communities, grassroots communities would benefit from the use of internet and technology to access better education for girl child and protection of their lives.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fatima. That was an excellent reminder of the realities that women face. You know, we're always worried about meaningful connectivity that will allow women to actually work better or learn better, and how we make digital work for people who are not connected at all. I think you're really going to challenge our panel to come up with some suggestions, and reminding us also of the need to focus on peace building, SDG 16. So it's now my great pleasure to actually introduce you all to our wonderful panel. We have Engy Ghozlan, who I have been a fangirl of hers for many years, since she launched Harrassmap in Cairo. Tanzila Khan, who is the founder of Girlythings from Pakistan, and is inspiring for her own life story, as well as the many young women that she works to provide a better life for. My dear colleague and fellow board member, WSA hench person, Marta Tomovsksa, from North Macedonia, a former minister, and who will bring us a government perspective. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to interview you, Mariana Costa from Peru, because you have one of, for me, the most sensible projects in terms of helping women to transition from their non-digital jobs into real digital roles in real companies. And then we're also very fortunate to have with us Antonia Rojas from Mexico, who is actually a partner at ALLVP. I'm not sure how to say it because it's coming out of the Spanish, or all VP. And I want to start with you, Antonia. If you could, Antonia, give us a little bit of insight into how you see these issues relating to women's digital rights, how that translates in your company, and how you see the private sector actually engaging with these kind of issues. So basically, just tell us a little bit about yourself, but from the perspective of where you sit within the private sector.
Thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here among such incredible women. I'm just so honored to be part of a global panel, and I think we need more of these instances where we can share what's going on with each of us. So thank you for the opportunity for having me here. Just a little bit about myself first. I'm one of the partners of OVP. We're a venture capital fund based in Mexico, but we invest across Hispanic Latin America. We invest in different sectors such as education, such as healthcare, such as financial inclusion, affordable food, smart cities, etc. And to answer your question, Dorothy, which I don't know from which part to take it, but I'm sure we will have a conversation that follows after everyone else had the time to present herself. But just some brief statistics about how is our ecosystem being formed, and how much work we need to do still to drive it forward. So in Mexico, according to a study that was done by the Amex Cap, almost 6% of the senior level decision makers are women. All the rest are men, and this has actually been improving slowly. But on the other hand, almost 38% of the investment professionals are being women. So we're generating the pipeline for that increase in the representation. On the founding side, 11% of invested startups in Mexico have a female founder, and this compares to almost, I think, 2% in the US, or 13% in the US, I'm sorry. So, and if we think about the board composition, 14% of the board compositions are led by a woman. So there's like this tragic statistics that we need all together to change. And the first thing to do it is first having this report that Amex Cap did at the end of last year. I think that was a shocking statistic from everyone to realize and understand that there is so much that we need to do. And then there is the technology question that you mentioned, Dorothy, and I'm a firm believer in the power of technology to transform several industries, and particularly on the democratization that it can do, to have access to different knowledges. You can now empower yourself by understanding things in the internet or learning how to code in the internet. Like, finally, information is available to everyone independently on where you are, but that start with the basic that you have a good internet connection. So I think that we need to make sure we have that as a minimum requirement for everyone. Dorothy, I'm giving it back to you because I don't want to take the
I just want to ask you a question before we move to the next person. So as a venture capitalist, how do you make sure you don't perpetuate bias in terms of the companies that you are investing in? Do you have any targets, or is it just whoever looks good? I mean, should you, as a venture capitalist, be worried about gender when you're placing your money, or it's a non-issue?
Yeah, I think we should be worried. And we've done several ways. We still need to improve a lot on this aspect. So 80% of our team is women. And I think that's one way of us, checking our biases and always, asking the tough questions. On the other hand, we try to meet, at least on a partners level, with every female founded startup. And I think that directly moves the pipeline and increases the pipeline, which is something that many people talked about, but not sure if they are actively doing something about it. And then something that we are also pushing forward is within the portfolio companies that we invest, how we can help women move to the C-level position within that company and stay in those C-level positions, right? So, for example, in one company, we talk with the C-level executives, and then we ask them to identify certain women within the company that were high potential in terms of reaching to C-level position, and we are coaching them directly. So we meet once a month with them, and we talk about their career path. We talk about the ways that they can make their print, for so to say, in the company, and how they move forward within their organizations. And I think this is something that it's not talked enough. We always talk about the top level of the corporations, but we need to think about all the C-level of the corporations, and those are the women that I expect, tomorrow be leading like the technology companies that are going to be changing and transforming the region, right? So when you have this medium to long-term perspective, I think that you can help in parallel ways, and this second way of thinking is something that we're not talking enough and we're not doing enough.
Wow, that's really very interesting, and it's a nice way of going to the other side of the world. And I'd like to now invite Engy to give her opening remarks. Medium to long-term strategies. Engy, you've been working on sexual harassment issues, women's safety issues. There is so much to talk about here, because we're all worried about the COVID-19 pandemic, but this epidemic of sexual harassment has been, going on for centuries. What strategies could we use to really bring this under control?
Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you, everyone. Very happy to be here among those amazing, inspiring women from all over the world. So good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning from Cairo, Egypt. As Dorothy is saying, just to give a brief about Harrassmap and our initiative. So almost 12 years ago, me and a group of women, friends, 3 friends who have been engaged in working in civil society, working on gender issues, decided that we will not be silent anymore about the issue of public sexual harassment. Growing up in Cairo, you're exposed regularly to sexual harassment in the public space, and it is a problem that was not tackled a decade ago as much as it is now, at least on a regional level, at least or on a national scale. We established Harrassmap using online tools that were available, such as Ushahidi mapping and interactive mapping, trying to give voices of women a platform where we can really listen to women report their own cases by their own words, utilizing social media and internet. Back in the day, it was very hard to report, still is a challenge to report due to stigma and the danger of reporting in general. Since then, the region has experienced a lot of change, as you all know. I mean, by 2011, the what is called regularly the Arab Spring, or the series of uprisings that took over the Arab world, changed a lot, and led many more youth to be more engaged, but also facing much more bigger dangers. We had hopes. We had more hopes than what actually happened. We thought that this change will bring more equality to women, will bring more rights and more resources and more accessibility, and abolish the disproportionate opportunities, and give us more space to really be and talk and open up. And what happened was not what you would aim for. It has become a challenge. It has been a challenge ever since, up to this day. 10 years later after the Arab Spring and 12 years later after launching Harrassmap, we are still facing almost the similar issues, but also with a lot more awareness. Young people now in Egypt are utilizing all forms of digital social media platforms to talk about sexual assault, to talk about sexual harassment. Every day we have a new case that we know about that is documented, utilizing smartphones, that is detailed, that is reported to the police and actually goes to prosecution. And all of this using and utilizing social media, which is exactly what we wanted to do 12 years ago. Not only when it comes to sexual harassment and sexual violence, we have also now the issue of family law reform, personal status laws that are also very discriminatory against women, that have been very rigid, that are the epitome of inequality. Drafts are currently being done. And people are also utilizing social media, women mainly are utilizing social media to say, we disagree, we do not want this law, we want to see our rights better represented as the Constitution says. So I just have to say that over the past decade, the utilization of social media to speak about women's rights and social issues in Egypt has really expanded and given us a lot of space. What we need to do in the medium to the long term is to continue, is not to stop, because women's issues tend to be seasonal. Sometimes we talk about them, and then sometimes, there's another more important issue that comes up, at least on a national scale, and we forget about sexual harassment for a couple of months, and then we hear about a big case, and then we're all back talking about it. I think what we really need to all do globally is to not stop, to continue talking, to continue utilizing all the tools we have, to continue to push. And COVID-19 showed that even when we're separated, we can still continue, because a lot of cases in Egypt has come up the last year on sexual harassment, sexual assault cases during the 2020 lockdown, utilizing social media again, utilizing the tools. We were able to continue to work, to continue to voice our opinions, to say what really needs to be said, regardless of being separated and not physically in the same place. So I guess in the long term, we just need to continue, and we should not stop. And women's issues are globally a priority, but sometimes locally it's not. So we have to keep pushing.
Thank you so much, Engy. And now you've given us a lot of food for thought. And Marta, let me just warn you that I'll be asking you about the legislative framework in a little while. But I'd now like to move to Tanzila, who is the founder of Girlythings, addressing issues that are seen as a taboo, that is relating to a monthly cycle and women's reproductive health. So over to you, Tanzila, and how do you see what you do fitting with the economic empowerment as well as the human rights dimensions that are attacked all the time, whether it be sexual harassment or a lack of recognition of needs?
Thank you so much, Dorothy, and thank you so much, everyone. I am already loving the energy in this panel right now, regardless of our borders, and I hope everybody is safe and healthy. For my work, Girlythings, we deliver feminine hygiene products to women across Pakistan. And because of the pandemic and because of the lockdown, we felt that maybe we were planted in place in time for this duration, because women's access to public and public spaces had been halted. And like they could not get their products, otherwise also if they could go to the market, they felt completely dependent on someone else. This is where Girlythings came into being, and we delivered to every nook and corner, every smaller city, bigger city of Pakistan. Now there is a division. I mean, when we live in a bigger city, women might feel more confident and they don't have that experience of taboo. But the moment we go deeper into smaller cities, villages of Pakistan, young girls, even today when they start their periods, parents are more likely to not send them to school out of fear of how they would manage it or embarrassment. And of course, a lot of families not having access to reproductive healthcare information, products, or services. Now, that part of Girlythings is about the action that we have in place, but there is still a long way to go. I want to raise two issues over here. One, menstruation being a female's issue. It may be a process that happens with a female, but it's definitely not just a female's issue. Most of the decisions that are made on a macro level about health are done by men. And even the designing and distribution and packaging of a sanitary napkin, I highly doubt that there are any women technicians, healthcare professionals that are involved in that process, even when it comes to user experience of how that product should be. So much so that years have passed, we've not seen any innovation in terms of menstruation. Sanitary napkins that are designed, they're not biodegradable. And sometimes the blame has been given to women that it's their sanitary napkins that's causing climate change. Whereas, where are all the talented individuals who are not really putting in any effort into innovating something better? At the same time, when women entrepreneurs like myself and Sabah Khalid, who is also the winner of the World Summit Award, she has a chatbot that delivers feminine hygiene information to young girls. When both of us came forward as entrepreneurs connecting technology and reproductive health care, we were seen down and we were encouraged to turn our entrepreneurial skills to maybe a fashion brand or a beauty brand. Not saying that those are soft areas to work in, they are like billion-dollar industries itself, but the area of reproductive health care deserves equal attention, not just for women, but for the society, for the nation, for the world. Because the more healthy we are from the inside, the healthier individuals and more contributing individuals we will become. So me and my friends about, we had our own challenges navigating our way in the entrepreneurial space. We also saw that more funding was directed towards startups that had founders who were men. But when it came to female oriented startups, we felt that we were only offered maybe mentoring or some platform to come and talk about our startup. And we did feel our space becoming more like a token and not being taken that seriously. But all in all, we've not given up. We have continued the conversation. And for us, for both of us, we felt that taking a subject like menstruation and not starting an NGO and demanding the same kind of seriousness or attention that is given to a lifestyle product like clothing or shampoo or toothpaste. There is no taboo around it. We demanded that the same attention and respect should be given to a product that a woman needs every month, and not give the perspective of charity to it. So these conversations are going on, and the pandemic period has helped us emphasize more on hygiene. And now the time has been better than ever to push the agenda for menstruation, to talk about removing the tax on feminine hygiene products, to make these products available for women of all ages and all backgrounds, because the taboo of period does not discriminate against class. I say that because when we're running Girlythings, we get queries from women that we assume to be empowered. For example, they're traveling, they have a career, they're moving around, but we get the same kind of queries from them that we would probably get from a village. And that shocked us, because even if women in Pakistan are empowered, sometimes they let that barrier come into their way. So all in all, Girlythings has been playing its part and would continue to do so. But at the same time, simultaneously, we're pushing for more attention to reproductive health care, more conversation on that end. And at the same time, we're demanding for more attention in terms of funding. Me and Sabah, we both hope that one day we both will become female investors. And that is when our journey would actually begin to give focus to startup ideas that really matter, and they're working on issues that demand equal attention.
Thank you so much. That was so inspiring. And you have reminded me of a huge scandal that we had in Ghana about half a decade ago, when our Minister of Education, who was a woman at that time, approved a project that would make sanitary napkins available to girls who were in need of them throughout the country. And you had a huge uproar from men. How can we be financing this? And meanwhile, the argument is if they don't have them, they won't go to school because they are so afraid. There's so much stigma. So it's really a reminder that I think it's a reminder for me that I can also do much more around this set of issues. I'd now like to move to Laboratoria, Marina. As I said, I've been a fan of yours. And in fact, it's a great honor for me as a WSA judge to see all of these wonderful products that I've gone through in depth and then meet the founders themselves. So tell us how you managed to do this. And are you still enthusiastic about this approach to transforming women's lives? Or have you become a little bit jaded? Is there something we should be doing differently today? What do you want to say about it?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the invitation. Really happy to be here in this panel with all these amazing women. I am as excited as ever. I think that I'm even more excited now with all the opportunities that we have ahead. I think that since we started Laboratoria, we've seen growing awareness and also growing commitment about really getting more women to start and grow careers in tech. So I feel very fortunate about having been at the right place at the right time to start our program. I'll share a little bit more about how it started and what we do. We actually around, it's going to be 8 years in 2013. My co-founders and I started a company to basically a web development company. We were doing websites for clients since one of my co-founders was a programmer. And it was in the experience of growing our company that we realized that there was actually a lot of demand for tech talent. It was really hard to build our own team of developers. We also realized that the world of software is a very special world where probably it's the only space that I know of where you don't really need a degree from a good university to build an amazing career. And I saw this as an incredible opportunity for social inclusion. And lastly, obviously, it was almost impossible to find any women for our team. Our team started growing. We had 15 developers, all guys. And I started wondering why was that the case and what we could do to change that. So Laboratoria was born in 2014 as a social enterprise looking to prepare more women to start and grow careers in technology. We decided to focus specifically on women that haven't been able to start a professional career yet, usually because they either hadn't accessed higher education yet or they had accessed higher education that unfortunately did not translate to a better job opportunity afterwards. It's a bootcamp program, so it's 6 months, it's immersive, full-time, really intense, all project-based, and we work really hard to make sure that the learning experience resembles what they are going to live at work once they graduate. So they are as prepared as they can be to really go out there and be amazing software developers in the companies they join. We started in Peru, in Lima, that's where I'm from, but then we've grown a lot over the past couple of years. We opened in Chile, then in Mexico, then in Colombia, then in Brazil. So now I see Laboratoria as a Latin American movement of women in tech that is enabling our students and our alumni to change their path thanks to not only getting a job, but actually starting a career with amazing opportunities for growth. But also, I think that they are changing the companies that they join. We're helping hundreds of companies really find that diverse talent that they need to build more diverse and more inclusive teams and ultimately better products. And now we have around 2,000 alumni. It's also really nice to see the impact that each one of them is having in their own communities, in their surroundings, as they grow under leadership, and they have the cause of women in tech and tech for good very close to their hearts. So I am really excited about seeing how, as time goes by and they continue to grow, they will have a huge impact on our countries going forward.
You know, definitely listening to you, I'm sure everyone on the panel is like, okay, we are going to get laboratoria into our countries and to see what can happen, because you're actually highlighting a very important point, that there's a great skill gap when it comes to tech. And because we're not encouraging enough girls to get into tech, that gap is going to continue. And that halts us in terms of our ability to offer services to our public and to make money. But at the same time, I just wanted to check with you. A lot of people worried about women in tech and responsible AI. Do you have any feelings about that topic, Marina?
So I think, I mean, something that we always say at Laboratoria is that it's important to get more women to design and build technology, because the people designing and building technology today are the ones that are going to shape our world in the future, no? And today we live in a world that wasn't shaped by women, because we've been until now historically more in the private sphere rather than in the public one, no? And if we want to make sure that over the next couple of decades that doesn't happen again, it's crucial to have diversity in tech, gender diversity, but going beyond that, no? Racial diversity, diversity in terms of socioeconomic backgrounds, because people bring who they are to that design process, and technology has penetrated every aspect of our lives. So if we want that technology to better serve a diverse population, then it's crucial to ensure that we have more women there. And I think AI is just part of that technology, no? So we do need to ensure that AI is built from the standpoint of women as well, and for the type of uses that will actually support and further support the empowerment of women as well. So I think that it's just another space that reminds us that more than ever, ensuring that we have diversity in tech is crucial. It's not only a responsibility that women have to carry, as some other panelists were mentioning, it's a responsibility of society as a whole, no? So really, companies, governments, civil society, we should all be part of breaking down the stereotypes and the barriers that until now have caused this gap, because it's in the interest of all of us to revert it.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful link into Marta, who has been working for government for much of her career. Marta, I'd love to hear your viewpoint on this, but let me provoke you first. First of all, these issues have been around for a long time. Why is it that we are not able to get our politicians, our governments, to actually make progress faster? What is it that women are not doing right so that we get things to happen faster? And let me give you two examples. One, I'm not going to talk about too much. You can go and Google it, those of you listening. The scandal that we had in Australia this week with members of their legislature. And then secondly, the issue that came up in France, which for me was terrifying, where a girl was raped at 13 and the courts are not recognizing it was a rape. They're saying it was consensual. How can this be? You know, why is it that our legislative framework, our decision makers, they're not keeping up with us? And then there's a whole camp of women who are like, forget this, we can make it. We don't have to keep talking about this. It's irrelevant. What do you say to all of that?
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Hello, girls. Hello from Belgrade. And I just want to thank you for having me today. In fact, this is one of my favorite topics. Being a woman myself with 25 years long career in the ICT, using the opportunity to introduce myself, I was in fact leading the first internet provider in the entire Balkan region, and then several of the biggest system integration companies, being a minister for digitalization in Macedonia, and now I'm advisor to the Prime Minister of Serbia on digitalization. So yeah, I can say for myself that I'm a woman with successful career, but there are many dilemmas that I just want to open and get back to your question, Dorothy, about legislation. So one of my dilemma is the number 20. Basically, in the domain of digital, we are somehow kept with number 20. So there are 20% of women in IT worldwide. Even in the most powerful technological companies, like it's around 20. Then 20% of the companies have female founders, 20% of the board members are women, and I just wonder, as just like you, why these numbers cannot get any higher. So I guess one of the reasons is that women get their basic right to vote. Take Switzerland, for example, only 50 years ago. So can you imagine? So it was like really like few years before I was born. And then if you see the numbers, contrary to the general belief, Western Europe is the most distant from the gender parity. So there is huge potential that is untapped. And there are some reports that suggest that gender parity could add additional billions and trillions to certain economies' GDPs. But this is not only economic disadvantage, but it's a moral one. And the questions you open are exactly referring to that. And myself, I personally think that the world would be a much better place if there are more women and more working women and more women in leading positions and women treated with dignity. And I just wanted to pinpoint as a curiosity, if you can see which are the countries that have best results during the pandemics. There are the countries that are led by women, and there is a woman at least on one of the top government positions, like Prime Minister or President. So the reason of that is that there are qualities that women bring to the table, and they're different. Their motherly instinct, and they're wanting better for their family, for their communities. It is not about competition, but it is about general betterment. And of course, diversity is always positive, and diverse teams have always better results because they have better perspective. And coming to your question, I am okay if we are going to fake it until you make it. And this is where I'm referring to the slowly achievement of this equality through regulation. So through legislation. I would take Serbia, for example. It is a genuine here. We have a woman that is prime minister, and half of the government members are women, and there is significant representation of women in the parliament and among mayors. 4 out of 5 leaders of the digital transformation of country are women. So it speaks about the evolution of society, but yet we have to make sure that all women have equal conditions. And we have to make it through legislation. Whether it is about representation, the examples that I mentioned, or a legislation against discrimination, or a legislation for regulating the salaries, or some gender budgeting. And we should not, and there are so many problems around the world, and we heard a lot of them, and it's about women that are being treated, raped, treated with violence, forced to early marriages, and they don't have right to employment, or their husbands are prohibiting them to be employed, have a word in their decision, or not given the right for education, or there is a salary gap. So there's so many things that we have to make sure that we should not settle really, I mean it. We should not settle until any one of us is treated with dignity.
Do you want, I mean, you know, there's a meme about the perpetually angry woman who is always, you know, fighting and getting things to never happy. But then you do have the other women who feel that we shouldn't focus on gender at all. Just focus on better quality, you know, whoever is good. You know, why all of this bias and discrimination to try and lift women up? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I've seen personally this. So there are people, including women, that work also in ICT that are very vocal against this debate. So like they were opening, when we were exploring the subject across different conferences, they always confronted and like saying, I just don't want to be promoted because I'm a woman, but I want the quality to be the only differentiator. That's okay and agree, but that's only the surface. As we see, as we discussed, there are few objective reasons for this. And we also said when we are talking about women in ICT, there are like reasons that are related to upbringing, about the tradition, about the perception, about the stereotypes, and they're practical reasons. And we discussed about these practical reasons along this conversation, the way we are raised, that we are raised to be perfect, which means avoiding failure and risk. And on the same time, boys are raised to be brave. And then IT is very competitive environment where you have to be ready to combat and very much with a high self-confidence, and which are not the qualities that traditionally the girls are raised. Then we are really busy. We are traditionally responsible for family, and that's IT is very competitive. And I said we have to spend a lot of time in learning. So like at least 2, 3, 5 hours per week to go in hand with the new technologies. And basically the IT, for example, it takes a lot of sacrifice. But there is a huge rate of dismissal of women from this profession because they need to have this time for family and household, and the pressure is great. But for my experience, there is a huge that is the best profession in the world for me personally. And if we make a good life and work balance, there is a lot of satisfaction, even more satisfaction and more financial independence. And that's why we have to promote this. We have to speak about this. We have to be there as role models. We have to explain our careers and how we got there. And you know, girls, people don't know what they don't know. We have to explain that, and we have to help them by mentoring them. And then this is what I'm doing. I have like 20 girls out from different places in the world that I'm mentoring on daily basis. They're asking me for different, you know, advices related to their career and their personal life. We have to be there for us. The solidarity, I guess, it's one of the things that is most important for us if we want to reach this equality, if we want to not to be kept with the number 20 anymore. We have to be equal. We have to be 50-50.
Wow. Okay. So that's really interesting. And all of these stories are fascinating. We've gone through a journey all around the world. But I just want to talk about the fact that we have been working on these issues for many decades now. In some countries, it's been more than 100 years. But how do we measure our impact? And recently, this was brought home to me because I sit on a board of a tech company that invests in training And I asked them for the numbers, and they gave me one number. And I said, I want to see the numbers, men and women. And they said, no, the GDPR, this will be an invasion of privacy. So we don't track our numbers anymore to be able to see how many women got trained, how many men got trained. And I was like, wow, people will use anything not to report on this. We only have about 15 minutes more together. So I would like us to do a quick round with each of you telling us about what you think about impact and how we measure impact, and how you see what recommendation you would make for the future so that things actually, that we will see the progress faster. For me, that's what I'm really worried about. So Engy, over to you.
Yeah, big questions. As you're saying, we've been working for a long time. We've been all very active for many years, but we're not the only ones, right? We have also histories that years and years.
Engy, let me just mention that all of us were very touched by the death of your very famous feminist activist, Dr. Al-Sadawi. So maybe you can also mention a little bit about what she did in her life.
Yes, I mean, exactly. I mean, Nawal Saadawi represents a generation that, fought so hard to be heard, that was also fought by the media, vilified by the media and vilified by people. She did not have an easy life to talk or speak up about women's issues in Egypt or the region. And she inspired many of us, the younger generation, feminists, to speak up. And her books really paved the way for so many of our beliefs and our intentions. But what she has experienced was a rough journey that we are still experiencing as well. For women to speak up and for women to be heard, they face all sorts of obstacles, not just because of the patriarchy and the bigger terms, but we're also talking about the day-to-day life where just to be heard, just to access resources, just to be there is a struggle. We are preceded by generations that worked so hard, that fought so hard. Not one right in Egypt for women was obtained easily. The right to vote was obtained after women stormed the parliament in the 50s and said, we need to have a say. They had a sit-in right in front of the parliament in 1956, I think, and they said, we will not leave until we have the right to vote. And this is how we got the right to vote. Most of these rights, most of our civil rights were gained because so many people put their lives and put their themselves on the line, and we still continue to do that. Now we have more tools. They fought at a time where the tools were quite limited. You have to physically be in a place, you have to physically fight, and now we are in a time where we can utilize a lot of the tools, when we are utilizing a lot of the tools, and this is making us unstoppable. My generation that was active in the early 2000s and still are, is also now meeting with a new generation that grew up in the 2000s and now is facing and utilizing and is speaking up. And we're very happy that the recurrent generations are speaking up and talking. On the side of that,
is there any metric you want us to focus on in terms of impact? Because we don't have too much time left in the session.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in terms of impact, we go back to, the strategies and the national strategies and the national machineries and mechanisms that are monitoring things such as combating violence against women or women empowerment. We have two key national strategies that were launched around 2015 and around 2017, and they both correspond to the 2030 Egypt Sustainable Development Plan. They have indicators for measuring impact, on different levels. So when it comes to violence against women, when it comes to women economic empowerment, when it comes to education and all that. But what it lacks is the actual monitoring tools and the progress indicators that we can monitor every couple of years and stop and ask ourselves, are we doing well or not? And I think we need these national mechanisms to be strong monitoring tools that can help us all, because it's just not activism and that's it. There are programs, there are projects, there's so much funding as well that is coming into these programs, and we need to keep an eye utilizing monitoring tools. And again, social media technology can help.
Thank you so much. There's some wonderful tools that are available to monitor how money is being spent and whether it's making impact. Tanzila, what do you think about this set of issues? You're muted.
I think it's been a year, but we're still struggling with the muting and unmuting of the mic. As we're discussing about it, I think, of course, there are a lot of issues out there relating to a lot of people coming from minorities as well. But sometimes, within the grabbing of these opportunities, we miss out on inclusion. Though the mindset is there, but it is very seldom shown in terms of action. And being a woman with disability myself, and being an employer, being somebody who gives jobs, I have felt that there is more that I could do if there aren't too many barriers halting me back. So it automatically makes me a more of a contributor. So I would like to highlight the importance of inclusion and integrating women with disabilities every time we talk about gender, because within the disabled community as well, there is discrimination in terms of opportunities. Women are given more desk-related opportunities, and men are given more field-related opportunities, which means that the men get to have experience, exposure, networking. They get to see rough and tough what the world looks like, whereas women are given more like analytical positions or positions where they only have to work on paper. So I do feel that there's a gap over there. So we need to integrate inclusion on all levels.
Thank you so much. Antonia, you've been listening to all of this. You are our investor. What do you think?
Thank you, Dorothy. So first of all, I subscribe to what I've heard from the other panelists, and this other metric might sound a bit obvious, but I think we need to improve it like from the get-go, which is the percentage of the workforce that each company has being women and being men, and it should be the same proportion as the population. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but it's actually not obvious. And then the other thing is like and this is more subjective, right? When you go into conversations, there is always, particularly in Latin America, and perhaps Mariana can relate more to it, and particularly is this expectation that the women have to be the caregivers. And I wish a world where people could freely decide if they want to be the caregivers or not, and that includes, partner getting into as well as the caregiver, and society allowing everyone to be the caregivers if they want to, right? So
yeah, this is a very important area, because COVID took so many women out of the workforce because they were forced to become caregivers for older parents, for sick people, for children who are out of school. Exactly. But let me just say, to do with your first metric, because I used to measure things like that at one point in my career. Okay. And they will tell you 50% of our workforce are women. And then when you check, they are people who bring coffee. There are people who are secretaries to, they're all in menial positions. But when they present the company profile, they present it as, you see, we have 37 women and only 20 men. And then the 37 women are actually in support of the 20 men. And the 20 men's salaries are 100 times what the 37 women's salaries would be. So it reminds us that each time we have to probe a little bit more, but I like your metric. Let's get companies to sign up, and I have to follow that up with UN Women. It could be they have such a program already. Going back to you, Marina, any metric we should look out for? Can we count the number of women who we transform into digital careers, or that's not enough?
I mean, in our work at Laboratoria, we have a number of metrics, but I think that the most important ones are our placement rate. So what percentage of our students get a job in tech after going through the bootcamp, and we consistently aspire for a placement rate that's above 80%. So we are very, very much focused on making sure that we are a job placement program. It's not only about learning, but it's learning something that will give you specific skills that will enable you to get a job. And then the second really important metric is the increase in income our students experience, because we want this to be high-paying jobs that have a prospect for growth, and that help our students precisely get out of that low skill, low pay job or informal economy job. So that's another key metric for us. We also track what percentage of our incoming students, for example, are working and have an income, and what is that income, and then what's their income once they graduate, no? And it's incredible to have that as a North Star, because we now see that around 70% of our incoming students do not have an income when they apply to the program, and then 80% of them get a job once they graduate or more, and it's a job that on average increases their income by 2.7x. So it's a significant jump.
Wonderful. Marta, do you want to comment on these metrics as an advisor to government and former minister?
Thank you, Dorothy. Yeah, I already said my metrics and my recommendations. So we should not settle until we are like totally equal. In the meantime, we should work, we should fake it, as I said, until we make it through regulation. We should regulate the representation on boards and companies, in government, wherever. But in the parallel, we have to raise their awareness so it becomes natural. So even women understand that there is a huge potential for them if they learn, if they study, if they work, and if they work especially in IT, which is my domain of interest. And also we should be proactive and have such global debates where we encourage our husbands and our sons and our men in our lives to support us in this endeavor.
Thank you. And it's interesting, we did not have any questions to the panel, which is why I let you talk, because also the conversation for me was a very rich conversation, different perspectives, but at the same time giving us an indication of the way forward. The only question we had was somebody asking what the breakdown of the people watching the session was in terms of men and women, and we can't tell because we didn't ask people to identify, and the names coming from different countries are such, we cannot really tell who is a man and who is a woman, you know. So I just want to thank all of you. Nora, do we have any more time? Can I ask them to give a single message? Yes?
Go ahead.
Yes. Great, because she's been nagging me on time. And so I would just like now to go through, I think Marta has given her single message, which is 50-50 and mentorship. Yeah. Let me ask you, Marina, your 5-word message.
I love a sentence that says, you cannot be what you cannot see.
You cannot be what you cannot see. It goes back to the mentorship. And then Antonia.
I was actually thinking on Mariana's phrase. so
we have.
Take it. But yeah, I think we all have spoken about it, and I'm sorry not to have prepared the 5 words that compare this. But yeah, I mean, I subscribe to Mariana. We need to be the people that we want others to be, and we need to make that path happen, and we need to be proactive on making that path happen. We cannot be the roadblock that other women have in their path, but rather we need to be the current that push them forwards, you know, and that's part of what it is, and we gotta do it.
Yeah, that's a lot of words for 5. Okay, So Tanzila, please unmute.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt at it. So my last thing would be um, inclusion in the heart, inclusion in the mind, and inclusion in the act.
Wonderful. 6, but still very effective.
Oh,
And and Engy, 5 words for us.
Yes, I mean, when you said that, I looked up a quote by Noel Saadawi that I really like. And it says, "You're a savage and a dangerous woman. Don't stop no matter what." So I think we get discouraged a lot, and just to remember that we can do a lot by just keeping on and going on.
Say that quote again.
You are, I mean, they say that you are a savage and a dangerous woman, and she says, "Yes, I want to be." So
Okay, so goodbye to all you savage and dangerous women, and let's continue the fight. Thank you so much, and thank you for WSA